Good afternoon. I'd like to call the April 10th, 2019 Ad Hoc Committee meeting to order. Will the recording secretary please call roll?
Johanna Hartwig. Present. Kevin Kwan. Present. Ade Rodriguez.
Here.
We have a quorum.
Thank you. Item 1A is interview and recommendation of members, alternates, to the secondary teacher position for the Committee of Credentials. The Ad Hoc Committee will interview one candidate for the secondary teacher position on the Committee of Credentials via video conference, Zoom. There is one vacancy, secondary teacher, on the Committee of Credentials. At the conclusion of the interview process, the Ad Hoc Committee may select an individual to recommend to the Commission for appointment of secondary teacher on the Committee of Credentials. The Commission may then take final action on Friday during item 3I. 3I, right? Yes. Ms. Kindle, will you please brief the Ad Hoc Committee on the Committee of Credentials position?
So as you know, there are seven members of the Committee of Credentials. One of those members is the secondary school teacher position. They have to be in a public school employment. We have only one applicant at this time. His name is Kevin Thompson, and you have previously interviewed him. At the time, you selected him as an alternate because there was no vacancy declared for the position. The member who's serving was still serving. That position now has a vacancy declared, and he has applied again and will be interviewing with you today. There are some prepared questions that you have. You may ask those questions or additional questions as you like, and I will be happy to answer any questions for you before we contact him via Zoom.
There he is. Hello, Mr. Thompson.
Hi, how are you?
Oh, doing well. How are you doing?
I'm well, thank you.
Good. So thank you for speaking with us today. We're going to ask you a few questions, and at the end of the interview, you'll have an opportunity to ask us any questions that you may have. So, commissioners, we'll go ahead and start with Commissioner Kung.
Thank you, Mr. Thompson, for applying. So my first question is a simple one. Are you currently a full-time certificated classroom teacher in a public secondary school with not less than 5 years of classroom experience?
I am.
Okay, thank you.
And I'm so sorry that I didn't introduce myself. My name is Ade Rodriguez, Commissioner, and to my right is Commissioner Kevin Kung, and to my left, Commissioner Johanna Hartwig. So sorry about that.
Oh, that's okay.
So the second question, the Committee of Credentials meets 3 full days per month with a 4th partial day for preparation. The committee reviews educator misconduct cases to determine whether to recommend discipline on the educator's license. Do you believe you can make this time commitment and review the subject matter?
Yes, I believe I can make the commitment and review the subject matter.
Thank you.
Good afternoon. Are you ever able to see me, Mr. Thompson? Okay.
Yes, I can see you now.
Now you can see me. Okay, good. I'm Johanna Hartwig. Very nice to meet you. So my question is, we'd love for you to tell us why you're interested in serving on the Committee of Credentials.
Sure. Well, I've followed the Commission's email thread for a number of years, kept up on the agendas. Last year, when there was an opening for an alternate position, I did a phone interview, and Commissioner Kung was one of the interviewees or people that were on the panel. So I was selected as an alternate. I haven't had a chance to serve, but I just have a really big interest in public policy. I have my doctorate in education from the University of Southern California. So as part of the coursework, that was my emphasis, essentially educational law and policy. As far as what I teach government economics at the high school level. I also teach political science at the community college level. So I feel that I'm unique in the sense that my subject matter lends itself to what the commission deals with. Also, I served 5 years as an administrator. So I had experience dealing with teacher discipline, supervision, evaluation, and I think again I can look at these issues through multiple lenses. But ultimately, I want to be able to give back to my community, give back to my state, and really show how we have the best educational system in the country.
Great, thank you very much.
Okay, thank you. So the next question is, do you know of any current members who are sitting on the Committee of Credentials or the Commission on Teacher Credential? If so, in what capacity?
I don't know anybody on either.
Okay, and you discussed this a little bit in the previous question, but if you could tell us a little bit more about what strengths or qualities you feel that you possess that would be assets in serving on the Committee of Credentials.
Sure. So I think the fact of myself serving as an administrator as well as a teacher will assist in that, because I dealt with issues pertaining to teacher discipline. So I'm familiar with the education code. I'm familiar with due process. I'm familiar with the process of referring individuals to the commission, and just having an understanding of that. Another area of my experience, I served on the bond oversight committee in a local school district. So again, working with district level, state level, and various capacities, which I would do as a committee member as well.
Thank you.
May I ask just one follow-up question about that? As I think you may be aware, the Committee of Credentials has quite a heavy workload, and we've already asked you a question about the sort of amount of time that it takes, which is about 3 full days a month plus an additional day, and the committee is dealing with large amounts of information and evidence regarding the different credential holders who are coming before the committee. Could you talk to us just a little bit about your ability to process a lot of information and analyze it quickly and efficiently?
Sure. Well, what I always do with tasks is I backward plan. So if you give me the date of the meeting, you give me the materials, I'm going to work out a schedule so that I have everything taken care of prior to flying up to Sacramento. And understanding that this is a very important responsibility, and it would be a priority to keep abreast and to fulfill my obligation.
Great, thank you. We're going to move on now to our next questions, all of which are scenarios. And so I'm going to give you the first scenario. And for each scenario, we'd like you to please discuss whether you would close the matter or recommend discipline on the educator's credential. And feel free to ask us to repeat the scenarios if you want. There's not a lot of detail in them. So okay. You just tell us what you think your approach would be for that. So the first scenario number 1, an educator has 3 petty theft convictions in 1997, 1998, and 1999. On each occasion, the educator stole an amount less than $100. So please discuss whether you would close the matter or recommend discipline on the educator's credential. And these scenarios are taking place, now in 2019.
Okay. So the theft occurred in 2019?
No, I'm sorry. I was just trying to say that we're talking about your decision making is now current
okay.
in 2019. The three petty theft convictions occurred in 1997, 1998, and 1999.
Okay. So I would need some more information. I would want to know, has that teacher completed the process with probation? Is that still hanging over their head? Because they've shown that they have been rehabilitated, then I would close the.
Oh, are we frozen here?
I'm still here.
Oh, sorry. For a second, I couldn't hear the end of what you said. So I think that you were saying you would close the matter.
I would close the matter, providing that the teacher has documentation that they have fulfilled their probationary or parole requirements, and that they have been rehabilitated from what they had done.
Okay, thank you. And I should have added into the instructions, your explaining your reasoning for us briefly is also helpful. So, so can you just elaborate a little bit more? I think your reasoning you started with, if the person can show they're rehabilitated.
Right, because of the low amount of theft, that wouldn't be a felony by any means. So the question being, did that person go through the rehabilitation process? Do they have documentation showing that they met everything, and could they provide that to the commission?
Okay, thank you very much. Commissioner Kung will give you the next scenario.
Okay, so the scenario 2 is, would your decision be different if there were additional theft convictions in 2017 and 2018?
Yes, and to follow up, one of the other reasons I said I would close the previous matter of the time they occurred, but something this recent, 2017, 2018, very disconcerting, and I would recommend looking further into what's going on, but that's very troublesome.
Okay, here's another scenario. An educator was convicted of a single count of driving under the influence of alcohol in February 2018. The educator had a child in the car during the offense, and the educator's blood content was 0.28. How would you proceed with that information?
Oh, absolutely. I would support an investigation and appropriate disciplinary action. As far as why, again, the time that this would have occurred, the fact that they had a child in the car, we're talking about child endangerment, which is a whole nother level. And then that blood alcohol content dramatically higher than what the legal limit is. And this is showing a very disconcerting pattern of bad judgment and unfit to be in a classroom setting.
Thank you.
Thank you. Scenario number 4, it's a little bit longer, so I can repeat any of it you need. A male teacher appearing before the Committee of Credentials admits that he has taken one of his female students to the mall and purchased clothing for her, as well as provided her transportation outside of school. The educator and student have exchanged texts regarding the student's alleged troubled home life. The student's parents have submitted an affidavit to the Committee of Credentials complaining of the teacher's behavior.
So the behavior is definitely, I would say, not what I would expect to hear about a teacher doing. It's strange behavior in my opinion, but this is a matter that would really need further investigation by the school district. Based on the complaints, no crime has been broken, based on my understanding. I don't know if that district has a specific social media policy in place, but it would really be something for the district administration, their attorney, the school board to look into, not the commission with that information.
So then you would not recommend taking action on the credential at this point?
At this point in time, no. There's not enough information that anything worse happened.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. So I have the last scenario, and that is, please consider a situation in which both members of the Committee of Credentials feel differently than you do in a recommendation of discipline. The deliberations indicate that 5 members oppose your recommendation and only 1 member agrees with you. How would you handle this?
Well, again, with my various experiences as a bond oversight committee member, as a school administrator, and even as a classroom teacher, there's times where colleagues and I have disagreements. So that comes with the territory. As far as how to navigate that, keeping a level head, not taking anything personally, and also really sticking to the ed code as well as to the guidelines for the commission. And as long as everybody's following that, hopefully there are no disagreements. But if there are, that protocol needs to weigh out, and that would trump anything that I think.
Any other questions, commissioners? Mr. Thompson, do you have any questions of the panel?
I don't think so. I'd like to thank you for having me this afternoon. It was a pleasure speaking with all of you, and I really do have a strong desire to serve.
And thank you so much for that desire to serve, because it's such important work that we do, and that the work that the Committee on Credentials does. It's what it's difficult, it's complicated, it's time consuming, but their hard work doesn't go unnoticed by us. It's such important work. So
Right.
Thank you.
Yes. Thank you so much.
So the process is we will deliberate after we're done with our interviews today. You're our only teacher candidate interview, and as Ms. Kindle said, you were already an alternate from the time that you were interviewed, that we didn't really have an opening, right? So we'll discuss. We will take our recommendation to the full commission on Friday, and then you'll be notified.
Okay, excellent.
Okay,
And
all right.
There's a couple things I know you can't ask me, but I just wanted to share with you really quick. So my wife's a teacher. My parents were teachers, and this is in my blood. It's what I was meant to do, and again, just to have another opportunity to give back to this wonderful state. So thank you again for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, bye-bye.
Bye-bye. All right, so Thompson, so now. Okay.
Microphone. Commissioners, what are your thoughts on Mr. Thompson and recommending him for the Committee of Credentials?
I feel that Mr. Thompson's a very strong candidate. He has experience as teacher, administrator. It seems like he has great educational background. I think he would serve well on the Committee of Credentials.
Commissioner Hartwig?
I agree that Mr. or Dr. Thompson is a strong candidate who seems well prepared to join the committee. I was impressed with his dedication he expressed towards the mission of the committee. I liked that he did seem aware that it was a heavy caseload and was able to explain how he manages his work responsibilities, which would include this. And I would recommend him to join the committee.
Okay. So I agree with all of your comments. Would somebody like to make a motion?
I move that we recommend Kevin Thompson as the secondary teacher member of the Committee of Credentials.
Okay, is there a second?
And I will second that.
All right, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? All right, motion carries. So Dr. Thompson will be presented to the commission on Friday. Thank you.
All right. So good afternoon. Thank you for all agreeing to be part of this ad hoc committee. Today you'll be interviewing 6 finalists for 3 vacancies on the Committee on Accreditation. Before you begin your first interview, I'd like to share with you a little background information that you may find helpful for your task today. Each year, the Commission interviews and appoints 3 individuals to serve new or continuing 4-year terms beginning July 1 of each year. The membership of COA is equally balanced, K-12 practitioners and 6 K-12 practitioners and 6 from higher education institutions. The leadership is also equally balanced with 1 co-chair from each higher education and 1 from K-12. This year's the vacancies include 1 member from the IHE community and 2 from the K-12 community whose terms are up on June 30th of 2019. So the nominations process began in the fall and was closed in February. We announced the vacancies through the PSDE news that comes out each week, typically on Fridays, for approximately 2 months and indicated the vacancies on the Commission's website. The result was that we had 12 applicants, and the first step was for the nominating panel to call down those to finalists that you see before you today. The nominating panel, which is in the Ed Code, is comprised of individuals appointed by the Committee on Accreditation and by the Commission Chair, and their sole purpose is to review all the applications and to move forward to you, the Ad Hoc Committee, 2 individuals to interview for each vacancy. So that's where we get the 6 from. Because the Commission Chair position was vacant during the period of time in which this process needed to take place, the Executive Director appointed an individual to serve in this role. And the composition of the nominating panel is listed on page 5. So they reviewed all of the materials for the 12 individuals and culled it down to the 6 finalists. So in addition to recommending the appointment of 3 individuals for the COA to the full commission today, you may also recommend appointments to any applicants you interview today to the alternate pool. And this pool is used by the executive director in the event of an unscheduled vacancy. It is helpful when we have a healthy size alternate pool because the director can consider balance issues when appointed individuals are needed to serve out unexpected vacancies. So right now, the agenda item does talk about the current balance of the COA. In addition to the expertise in preparing future educators and expertise needed by new K-12 practitioners for today's schools, it's important to ensure a balance on the committee to ensure a wide variety of perspectives are represented. No COA member serves as a representative of their employer, but rather serves on the COA on the basis of their expertise. Balance issues to consider are geographic representation, gender, racial, ethnic, segmental representation, size of the institution, public versus private, among other considerations. So the current members are listed on pages 1 and 2, and then page 3 and 4 of the agenda item discusses the various aspects of balance and the requirements that is set in Education Code for membership. So, of particular note, I would like to highlight a few things for you to consider. Currently, the COA has representation from all systems of higher education. The position being vacated is currently being held by a representative of an independent institution. And of the 5 remaining members of the higher ed community, 2 are from independent institutions, 2 CSUs, and 1 UC. So we have all 3 segments covered there. In terms of the gender balance, of the 9 remaining COA members, 3 are male and 6 are female. In terms of geographic representation, of the 9 remaining COA members, 7 are from Southern California and 2 are from Northern California. And there are 2 applicants who are currently serving on the COA that are incumbents, both of whom are eligible for a second term. The other one is not eligible for a second term. The applicants that you'll talk to today were each emailed the questions this morning, so they have a couple of minutes or a little bit of time to think through their thoughts. That's typical of our process for the past few years. I've provided you with these 4 broad questions to ask each applicant. I will caution you that in an effort to be fair to all candidates, if you ask a follow-up question of one, if you would make sure to ask that follow-up question of all the candidates, unless it's just clarifying something that they've said. So these questions, as I said, have been emailed. All the interviews will be conducted via technology. Hopefully it will work. And Michelle Bernardo is here to assist me, and we will need a minute or two between each interviewee to get them hooked up to the technology so that we are sure we can hear them and see them. So please be patient. And then at the end of the interviews, you'll deliberate and vote to recommend to the full commission the 3 individuals for appointment, and should you desire, any individuals to the alternate pool. So that's where we're at. Any questions? Great. Good. All right.
So Lisa Kirkman?
Yes. Hello.
Okay.
All
Hello.
right. So Lisa, we can hear you. We can't see you. Did you want to put on your camera or?
I thought I did, so I apologize.
That's okay. There,
Oh,
there you go.
oh, there we
Right.
are. All right.
Sorry about
Okay.
that.
No problem. Great.
Okay. So we begin our interviews with the 2 finalists for higher education, representative on COA. We have 2 individuals for 1 vacancy. Then we will follow with 4 interviews for 2 K through 12 positions on COA. And keep in mind that we can also appoint any individuals to the alternate pool so that the executive director can. I'm repeating what you said. Sorry about that. Just okay. So we will go ahead and start. Ms. Kirkman, hello.
Hi, how are you?
I'm well, thank you. My name is Aida Rodriguez. I'm a commissioner, and I have 2 other commissioners here with me. To my right
I'm Kevin Kung.
and to my left. And so we have 4 questions for you. Commissioner Kung will. Oh, I'm sorry.
I didn't, the other person, I did not see or hear, so I don't know if I'm going to need to hear them or not.
Oh, it's on, but. Hi, this is Johanna Hartwig. Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you.
Great. Okay, so Commissioner Kung will start with the first question.
Thank you, Ms. Kirkman. The first question is, please begin by briefly summarizing your professional experiences that relate to your candidacy for the Committee on Accreditation. We're interested in your teaching experiences, your work with diverse K-12 students or credential candidates, your involvement in education reform efforts, and your specific experiences in an accreditation process.
Okay, I'm a former elementary and middle school teacher. I worked in South Central for Los Angeles Unified School District as well as Paramount Unified School District. And I was trained through an alternative credentialing system. I was one of the early cohort members of the Los Angeles School District intern program. I've also worked for Cal State Fullerton for the past 18 years, primarily in teacher credentialing, teaching math methods primarily, and I'm currently the Dean of the College of Education at Cal State Fullerton. But also during this time, I taught part-time for Cal State Teach, which is a fully online credentialing program. So I've had a lot of direct experience with a number of different types of credentialing programs from the perspective of a student, obviously, an instructor, and an administrator. So I feel like this work really puts me in a good position to understand credentialing and accreditation. In terms of what I think is specifically relevant to this position, I would say that what I have learned from all of those experiences is that accreditation of credentialing programs really is paramount for the success of our students, that we need quality teaching because that's what leads to student success. So for the sake of our TK-12 students, we have to have quality checks in place. And I will tell you, based on my own credentialing experience, I went through, as I said, an alternative program, and I needed it to survive, I would say, out of college. I couldn't have become a teacher without going through an alternative intern program. But at the same time, I worry about the training that I received, and it sort of has concerned me ever since, especially now being able to view it through other lenses. And I think what it has done is it really has brought to my attention the importance of consistency of quality across programs. So I think from my own personal experiences, as a credentialed teacher going through an alternative program, I see the need for the alternative program. I see the need for the online program. I see the need for the face-to-face, but I also see the need that we have to have consistent quality across those, especially for the students like the students that I taught, where there weren't a lot of resources. So the only thing that we can be assured of is that they have high quality teachers. So I think that that's a lot of what accreditation can do. What I've also learned is that teachers really don't change who they are unless we change how they teach. It's really easy to fall back and teach the way you were taught in a lot of ways. So the only way to do that, to me, is through changing how we teach teachers to teach. And to me, that's through accreditation. Institutions change in large part because of the accreditation push that they get. It's not the only reason, but it's a way to ensure high quality, and it makes me want to be part of something that is ensuring that quality across a lot of different areas and avenues.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Welcome.
So the second question, as a member of the Committee on Accreditation, what do you think are the most important things to look for in making an accreditation decision for an institution?
I think, again, it goes back to that quality, looking for quality, but also consistent quality across different bodies or different institutions. So whether, as I said, you're a district intern or whether you're traditional face-to-face, we know that there's high quality teaching. But I also think it has to do with ensuring that there's institutional and student outcomes. That's a big part of it, making sure that institutional practices align with performance standards and criteria. But maybe the most important to me is ensuring that there's multiple and varied assessment measures, that we see consistency of those measures, and we can understand that this isn't just one person's point of view or one piece of evidence, but that we can see it across multiple areas, whether the students are talking about it, whether the instructors, whether the district partners, or whatever other evidence is available. To me, it's got to be multiple, it's got to be varied, and we have to, in a sense, sort of be able to triangulate that evidence. So to me, those are the most important things that I think I would look for in those areas. Oh, I couldn't hear you.
The third question is, what do you see as the biggest challenges for the Commission's accreditation system in the coming few years? And how can you, if you are appointed as a member of the COA, assist the Commission in addressing these challenges?
Thank you. I think there are going to be a number, but some of the ones that come to mind, the first one that comes to mind is national accreditation, is that we've got CAPE, and we had NCATE, we've got AAQEP, we've got other ones that are coming into focus, and I think it's about trying to figure out balance. How do we ensure that our California institutions are actually meeting the standards while working with these other outside national organizations to ensure that we're also not making our institutions duplicate efforts. So I think a lot of it is about trying to figure out how to come together with some of those organizations so that we're ensuring high quality teachers, but not in some ways overworking the institutions. In terms of my background in those areas, when we had our in-Kate CTC visit, I was the associate dean and I led those efforts. We recently had AQUIP on campus so that I could learn and all of my colleagues could learn a little bit more about national accreditation. So I think it's about trying to begin to navigate that and figure some of those things out. I think that's one issue. I think the other issue, and maybe the one that's nearest and dearest to my heart, is the challenge of ensuring that the teachers that we have truly can teach all children, no matter what their race is, whether or not they speak a language other than English, whatever their ability is. We have standards on diversity, but I think that accreditation can push further and harder in those areas to make sure that we're truly closing the opportunity gap. And the only way to do that, to me, again, is through teacher ed and through having accreditation push through some of those challenges. So I think the two big things that come to mind, there's obviously issues of scale and how do you get to all of the institutions and with the teams, and you need peers and all of those things. But I think those are the two things that concern me the most right now, or I think are going to be the biggest things coming up: national accreditation, how to work with those, and then ensuring that the teachers and the programs that we're certifying really are able to help teach all children.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay, so I have the final question, and that is there anything else you would like to add that you think would be important for us to know and as we consider application for the COA?
I think the only thing that I would say is that I'm interested in this because I'm truly interested in improving the livelihoods of the TK-12 students that we serve. So I think I'd like to be part of an organization that basically is ensuring high quality teachers, that's going to ensure that we have student success. So to me, that's the focus. That's been my focus. It's the reason that I have stayed in education all of these years, and it's the reason that I want to continue doing things maybe on a larger scale on a state level.
Thank you so much. Do you have any questions for us?
I think my questions have to do with sort of timeline. Is there a timeline in making the determination?
So what'll happen, we have, let's see here, 4 interviews within the next hour and a half or so, and then we will deliberate. So what we'll do is we'll make a recommendation to the full commission, and they'll either accept our recommendation, and then the person that's recommended will be contacted, or we could recommend and then place another candidate in the alternate pool as well. So you'll be contacted I'm assuming by next week with our decision, or you can watch live on Friday morning.
My other question, now that you've asked me that question, I'm just curious what you believe the biggest challenges are for the commission at this point in time, for the Commission on Accreditation.
The biggest challenges, I'm going to echo some of the points that you made about ensuring that there's quality throughout California, right? And it's a committee that's able to credit the way teachers are being prepared, and making sure that while, as you said, alternate programs are important, but we also need to make sure that the standards are high for the teacher candidates, and that they are going through a program that is going to prepare them effectively to handle the challenges that they're going to within a school setting, with working with students, our diverse population, to make sure that they have all of the skills necessary. And so as much as possible, these are conversations that we have, that we want to, our students are very different. And a comment that I'm a classroom teacher, And one of the comments that I make to my students is that somebody who was an excellent teacher 5 years ago may not feel that way or may not be right now because our students change so much, and they've changed very dramatically just in the last 2-3 years. And so, right, we want to make sure that every teacher that's in the classroom not only has the training but the dispositions to serve our students. So, it's a boomerang of exactly what you said. I was listening to you and I was like, yeah, that's what we're doing. So I hope I answered your question.
Yes, absolutely. Thank you so much, and thank you all for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you.
To the next. We'll see if we can get him on. And he's on. And his information begins on page 39. I know it's sort of out of order with the. Sure, absolutely. Is it? Okay. Is he on? He's on? Oh, okay. So they might want to take a break after at some point. And I think you're running just a little bit early, so we will. No, he's apparently on.
If you're ready, you can.
And we'll try to text the other individuals to let them know. At some point, you might want a little break to use the restroom, but. I see. Dr. Hillis, are you there? Can you hear us? It's probably trying to log in. We can't hear you. I don't know if you can hear us.
How about now?
All right. There you go. Now we
Good.
can see and hear you. Great.
All right.
All right. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Hello, Dr. Hillis. Welcome.
Hi.
I'm Commissioner Rodriguez, and to the right of me, I'll have him introduce himself.
Hi, I'm Commissioner Kevin Kung.
And to the left of me,
Hi, I'm Commissioner Johanna Hartwig.
Hi, nice to meet you all.
Nice to meet you.
And so we'll be conducting the interview, and after the interviews today, the ad hoc committee will discuss, and what we will do is we will make a recommendation to the full commission Friday morning. So that is the process, and we have 4 questions for you. Commissioner Kuhn will go ahead and start out.
Okay, good afternoon, Dr. Hillis. So my first question for you is, can you please begin by briefly summarizing your professional experiences that relate to your candidacy for the Committee on Accreditation? We're interested in your teaching experiences, your work with diverse K-12 students or credential candidates, your involvement in education reform efforts, and your specific experiences in the accreditation process.
Okay, well, the teaching starts many, many years ago. I ended up getting a teaching degree in speech theater and English, and worked in alternative schools for a couple years. Went back into the university and got a degree in school counseling, and that was a 2-year program, and at that point decided to go on and get my doctorate in educational psychology with an emphasis in multicultural education. The accreditation experience actually started in my very first university job, which was at East Tennessee State University. They had actually lost their national accreditation primarily because of their lack of attention to diversity issues. And since that was my specialty, I was asked to come in and help the university deal with that. So I was a complete neophyte when it came to accreditation, and all of a sudden I found myself a young professor kind of thrust right in the middle of it. That work took place over the course of a couple years, and we received our national accreditation. Soon after that, I was actually appointed to the Board of Examiners for NCAPE in 1997 and was a NCAPE BOE member for 10 years. and did site visits across the country. When I rotated off of that, I then moved into more state work in the state of Washington, where I worked with state accreditation teams, and also worked with a group called the Metrics Group that was helping develop national or statewide assessment system. At my university, I was also asked during that period of time, because of my background in accreditation, to become the NCAIC coordinator and accreditation lead and assessment director for our university. And so I led us through 2 accreditation visits. And then I found myself in Southern California after my wife and I decided we were tired of the rain and the kids were out of the house, and found myself at Cal Lutheran just in time for another accreditation visit, which we completed in the fall of 2017. So very quickly I learned about the California system as it was going through some changes, and also had a very successful accreditation visit then. And then finally, in terms of some of the other work in terms of diversity and professional reform efforts, I've done some work with recruiting diverse students into teacher ed programs in the state of Washington through a high school program. And then now at Cal Lutheran, where we are. Been recently designated a Hispanic serving institution, and with our focus on cultural proficiency is something I really committed our Graduate School of Education. And then finally, I'm part of the Deans for Impact group, which is a national group that's really focused on trying to use data to make program-informed decisions to improve teacher education. And what we're really trying to seek in that reform effort is how can we have a better sense of evidence-based teacher preparation processes that we can share across our educational community across the nation.
Thank you. As a member of the Committee on Accreditation, what do you think are the most important things to look for in making an accreditation decision for an institution?
Well, I think the first big piece is I think a Committee on Accreditation absolutely must trust the site team, because the site team is very much the eyes and the ears for the Committee on Accreditation. I've seen decisions in the past at my previous institution and as a Board of Examiner member where decisions were overturned, and it created a lot of stress and anxiety for the institution, for the team, for the institution itself. So I think that that's a really important piece. First and foremost is really trusting those site visitors and making sure that they're trained and ready to do the work. I think secondly, the Committee on Accreditation then really needs to dig into the evidence that is presented both by the site team and by the university itself, and making sure that people are well versed in what was found out and discovered. And then obviously still making an independent decision, but making sure that those decisions are not made in any kind of superficial way. And then finally, while I do think it's important to give the benefit of the doubt to universities at times, because accreditation visits are never 100% clean. And so there are things that happen on visits, in the preparation, in the setup. At the same time, while I'm a university person and hold that dear, I've also seen the power of accreditation and its adherence to standards to actually make some profound programmatic changes. It's one of the reasons why I keep finding myself back in front of accreditation when colleagues are saying, "What in the heck are you doing?" And partly it's because I've really seen how that can be a positive impact on colleges and universities and programs for education. And so it's never been something that I've kind of shied away from, and really see the value of that.
Here's our third question. What do you see as the biggest challenges for the Commission's accreditation system in the coming few years? And how can you, if you are appointed as a member of the COA, assist the Commission in addressing these challenges?
From the university perspective, I think the challenge has always been, as we talk about the accreditation work, is the shifting landscape. Universities and teacher ed programs have lots of competing demands, accreditation being one of them. And so consequently, it's difficult when it feels like the land is always shifting underneath your feet. Now, some of this is inevitable. For example, the current changes that are coming about for the PPS programs and counseling are probably long overdue. At the same time, I think there are challenges to make sure that what is being advocated for a change is actually, we conclude that it's actually going to have a beneficial effect for programs. I think the second big challenge is, I think committees, the Committee on Accreditation and CTC in general, I think we really have to ask the question, are there actually barriers that are being created that are keeping out really well qualified people? For example, I think the question around how do we diversify our teaching force, which is an issue that's very near and dear to my heart. I think one of the questions that has to be asked about that is that as we create more rigor, which I don't think anybody wants to back away from, at the same time, does the kind of rigor that we are advocating, so the dominant one being, a testing mechanism, does that inadvertently, systematically have a bias against certain groups of people? And so I think we can end up actually creating some of the issues that we're trying to fight against. And then I think another big thing is I think the Commission is going to really need to keep its eye on the national landscape. CAPE, formerly NCAPE, has been problematic, and that's probably a mild way. I'm sure some of my colleagues would say it a little bit more strongly than that. But I think if, in California, it's fairly apparent that a lot of institutions have decided to abandon CAPE. My institution was one of them. And part of that was because of the lack of organization and the difficulty that would have created for us, specifically a smaller institution. But then there's also, I think they're actually kind of coming around now. I've had some very interesting discussions with the national folks at CAPE, and I think they finally are on some solid footing. But now we also have the emergence of AQUEP, which is the new national organization, which is actually taking us back to the way it used to be with NCAPE and TIAC. And I'm not sure where California wants to land on that. If California simply wants to be in the middle and say you can pursue either or even opt not to choose either, I think that's a discussion that needs to happen, but I think the national landscape is going to be really important for us to watch.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
I have the final question, and that is there anything else you would like to add that you think would be important for us to know as we consider your application for the COA?
Well, I think, as you probably picked up, I'm relatively new to California, and so learning all the ins and outs of the California system has been a challenge, I must say. It's part of the reason why I've jumped into it. Is I feel like oftentimes when I talk with faculty members and they are frustrated about the accreditation process, oftentimes I'll say to them, if you got actually more involved in it, you actually may gain a deeper respect and understanding for that. And so some of that is, that's still an ongoing learning process for me, and I certainly don't claim to have any, exemplary knowledge at this point about all the accreditation work. I think I've got a pretty good handle on it. Went on my first California visit a couple of weeks ago, and like I said, I learned a lot about the system through that process. I think the other, final thing is just a brief little anecdote. And when I was telling my wife the other day that I was going to be interviewed for this, she kind of looked at me and said, "Why do you keep doing all this?" And and I said to her, I'm not sure I have always chosen accreditation, but in a lot of ways, accreditation has chosen me, and it's been something that I found very professionally rewarding, and I think I bring to it a fairly straightforward, honest, and pretty empathic response, especially having been on both sides of it now for 20 plus years. And so it's been great to get to know people at the state level, both in my previous state in Washington and now here in California. And so I just appreciate the opportunity to speak to all you and to be considered. So.
Do you have any questions of us?
The only question that I guess I would have would be, I'm also curious what the COA sees as its chief challenge over the next couple of years, as you as a body have been meeting. That's been one of the questions that's kind of been at the back of my head.
Would you like me to comment? Would you like to comment? Yes.
I'm willing to hear any of you. I'm just curious, like, if there's been ongoing discussions on the board that you kind of say, this is something that continues to kind of keep rotating back to a fairly deep discussion for the committee.
Well, what I would say, and the reason that I feel at liberty to discuss COA matters is because as a commissioner, I'm also the liaison to the Committee on Accreditation. Okay. And so, I'm sort of a fly on the wall listening to incredibly robust conversations about accreditation. And what I would say is probably, and I don't know that I would frame it as a challenge, but definitely the charge that the commission, that we the commission have given the Committee on Accreditation is, and I'll use a word or an expression that's been used a lot in the CTC meetings, is for the Committee on Accreditation to have teeth, and when there's a program that is not doing so well, that we make sure to point that out. And while you talked about the benefit and how when people don't understand accreditation or don't like it, and you say, well, why don't you become a part of it, right? Because it's incredibly, we want to make sure that when we leave, when our site team leaves an accreditation site, that people, even if they were given stipulations or what have you, that they look at it as a learning experience. That we've achieved. There have been many situations. Oops, we lost him. Are you there?
No, I think we lost him.
Dr. Hillis, are you there? We have just lost your feed. Hello? You got disconnected. Oh, boy.
Should I continue?
No, just wait for him to get back on the line.
Yeah.
You were being.
We've got it. Michelle's texting him.
Zoom.
That doesn't happen very often with this program.
I'm sure he'll be back on in a second.
Yeah.
Oh, that could be a challenge. Our technology. Perfecting our technology. Actually, we use Zoom a lot for the Committee on Accreditation. And we've never had an issue that, I mean, at least in the days that I've been at meetings.
That's a good system.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mm.
But sometimes people can get dropped from some, something
Right.
weird with their connection or
AT&T.
Yeah.
That's always a concern about. It's like, if you ever want to call me at work, I don't have reception at work. And good luck.
Oh yeah.
Okay. Welcome back. So as I was saying, technology is one of our challenges. Are you
Hear us, Dr.
You hear
Harris?
us?
Oh, there we go. Sorry
All
about that.
right. Great. We lost you.
Welcome back. And
Thank
as
you.
I was saying, technology is one of our challenges. Then we got cut off. So we want to make sure that when our team is at a site, that the people who are being reviewed feel edified, that they feel like, wow, we didn't realize that this was happening, and now we have a lot to work towards, right? And we've been very successful. Every time that we hear from our candidates, they always say that, how they feel like, they're going to be better because of our visit. And then as I was saying, on the other hand, we also want to make sure that the Committee on Accreditation has teeth. And so if there is a program that isn't serving the students within their program to further serve the students of California, then we want to make sure that that's being called out. And that's a charge that the CTC has, been very vocal about with the Commission on Accreditation. So, and we're balancing the surveys, for example, our data, the data dashboards. All of this is pretty new to us, so we want to make sure that the surveys that we're garnering great information that we can use to improve other programs.
Yeah, I know those surveys have been a great help to us, just because, especially now that they're getting really representative samples back, and I think our last one was 95% of our completers had completed that survey.
Great.
And that was great, and we've had really robust discussions about that. And so I know from the university standpoint, we're very very appreciative of that. So, yeah.
Great. Any other questions?
I don't think so. So basically the process is tomorrow it'll go before the group
On Friday.
Okay.
We'll discuss
there
it
you go.
when we're done with our interviews, and
Okay.
then on Friday, I believe the agenda item is Friday morning, correct? Then
Okay.
on Friday
I think so.
we will make a recommendation. The commission
Okay.
will either say yay or nay, and then you will be contacted by our staff next week, or you can watch live.
There we go.
Yeah, it's up to you.
It'd be almost like the Final Four.
That's right. Yes, yeah, almost.
Great. Well, thank you very much. I appreciate your time.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Take care.
Thank you. You guys tell me. It starts on page 9. There she is. Jomaline, can you hear us? She's working on getting the...
Good afternoon,
Technology
Jo
working.
Malene.
Think she's-
I don't think she can hear us.
We can see you. Can you hear us? I think she's working on it. Jo Malene, can you hear us? Not yet. Looks like she's trying. She's troubleshooting.
Hello?
Oh, hi there. We can hear you. Can you hear us?
Yes. Finally,
Perfect.
yes.
All right. Great. Perfect. So I think we're ready to start then. All right.
Hello, Jo Malene. How are you?
Hi, how are you? I'm doing well.
Doing well. Thank you. So, you know me, and to my right, I'll let him introduce himself.
Hi, I'm Kevin Kung.
And to my left,
Hello.
Hi, I'm Johanna Hartwig. Nice to meet you.
Hello.
so we'll be asking you 4 questions, which I believe you received this morning, correct?
Yes, correct.
Okay, and Commissioner Kuhn will start us out.
Hi, Jo Malene. I have the first question, and that is, please begin by briefly summarizing your professional experiences that relate to your candidacy for the Committee on Accreditations. We're interested in your teaching experiences, your work with diverse K-12 students or credential candidates, your involvement in education reform efforts, and your specific experiences in an accreditation process.
Okay, so I have a strong background in research. I have a PhD in education from UC Santa Barbara, and as such, I have worked with teacher candidates in providing them with teacher education through Pepperdine University and Antioch University for 4 years, and as such, I gave them training in English language acquisition and development. So for 4 years, I'm familiar with providing teachers with the necessary skills in learning how to teach and provide assistance to students with learning disabilities and needs in literacy. After that, I went on to teach high school. I went back to teaching K-12, and currently I am a English language development instructional coordinator at Culver City High School, and I also teach at the 10th grade level for English. I teach English 10 honors and English language development for all grade levels at Culver City High. So I am able to merge theory with practice. I'm able to address the needs of students, and at the same time, I understand where teachers are coming from in terms of finding the necessary skills to better prepare students for college and beyond. At the same time, I'm able to use my background in research and my practical experience as an educator with my experience, my 4 years of experience in working for the COA. So for the last 4 years, I've also worked with the COA in addressing internal board reviews and determining the conduct of accreditation policies for the COA. And with that, I'd like to continue my service to the COA by, again, reapplying for this position.
Thank you for that. I have the second question, Jo Malene. As a member of the Committee on Accreditation, what do you think are the most important things to look for in making an accreditation decision for an institution?
One of the things that I observed in these 4 years as working as a COA member is that what's really important is to find the evidence for the claims posed by the institution. So, for example, if they say that they've provided great guidance and support for the teachers. We'd like to be able to see evidences of that and the necessary documents that provide proper documentation of those claims. At the same time, we'd also like to see continued support for teachers and also, again, proper, consistent, and continuous improvement amongst all of the policies that are being set up or maintained in each institution.
Okay, thank you.
Good afternoon.
Hello.
I have the third question. What do you see as the biggest challenges for the Commission's accreditation system in the coming few years, and how can you, if you are reappointed as a member of the COA, assist the Commission in addressing these challenges?
So we currently have a teacher shortage, and I foresee many institutions would like to apply for credentialing programs, and I'd like to continue my work and my service to the COA in making sure that the bar is set high for any incoming institutions that would like to continue or apply for accreditation for the state.
Thank you.
Okay. I have the final question. Is there anything you would like to add that you think would be important for us to know as we consider your application for the COA?
I really enjoyed my time working with the COA currently, and I'd like to continue that further. I feel that the experience and the expertise that I've gleaned these 4 years will help me improve and, again, help set the bar higher for the COA to continue its work.
Thank you, Jo Malene. Do you have any questions for us?
No, not at the moment.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, we're going to check on the next person, which is Suzanne Borges. Thank you. And she starts on page 16, her information. Page 16 is her. We'll see if we can get her on. Perfect. That's good. What? She's not. Suzanne, can you hear us? Suzanne? Okay. She's showing she's on, Jamal? Huh.
Hi.
Oh, great. Now we can hear you, Suzanne. Oops, there
Okay,
you
good.
are. Perfect. All right. Thank you for joining us.
Yes.
Hello, welcome.
Hi.
Can you see us all?
Yes, I can.
Okay, great. Suzanne, you know me, Commissioner
I do.
Rodriguez. And to my right, I'll let him introduce himself.
Hi, I'm Kevin Kung.
And then
Hi,
to
Kevin.
my left.
Hi, I'm Johanna Hartwig. Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you.
And so we have 4 questions, and we'll each ask a question. And we'll start with Commissioner Kung.
Okay.
Okay. Hi. So I have the first question to ask to you, and that's, can you please begin by briefly summarizing your professional experiences that relate to your candidacy for the Committee on Accreditation? We're interested in your teaching experiences, your work with diverse K-12 students or credential candidates, your involvement in education reform efforts, and your specific experiences in an accreditation process.
Okay, well, I'm an education specialist, mild to moderate, and for the past 21 years. And I have been involved in, they used to call it BITSA for about the past 15 years, and then it changed to induction. But I've also been a BIR member for quite a while and started out doing initial program reviews, program assessments, site visits. So I've kind of been full circle. I teach in the classroom. Our school has a collaborative model, co-teaching. Students are not separated. They're all educated together. And I was also on the Ed Specialist Task Force for rewriting the credentials. I think it was year before last. And I was in my district. I've been involved I'm on the Superintendent's Advisory Committee. I was actually Teacher of the Year for my school district in 2016-17. And I'm constantly finding ways. What I'm most proud of that we've done as the state and at my schools is implement UDL, make sure that all students are receiving what they need in the way they need it. And as far as being on the COA, it's kind of like coming full circle, and I really enjoy the collaborative atmosphere of it. We all come from different perspectives. You know, I'm from the K-12, there are people from IHEs, and we all have our perspective when we come together and trying to streamline yet keep it rigorous, the credentialing program for all aspects. And I like the way it's constantly evolving.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you. So the second question, as a member of the Committee on Accreditation, what do you think are the most important things to look for in making an accreditation decision for an institution?
I think it's looking for that the programs meet the criteria for the standards, and that there are rigor, but it's also tailor-made to meet candidates' unique needs, just as we do that for students, to make sure that they are reaching the level of competency needed to educate our students.
I have the third question. What do you see as the biggest challenges for the Commission's accreditation system in the coming few years? And how can you, if you are reappointed as a member of the COA, assist the Commission in addressing these challenges?
Well, as a member of the COA, because we have a diverse group, you know, people, different teaching positions as well as IHEs, you know, administrators, and I see the coming challenge of shortage of competent candidates to become teachers. And so we all work together to ensure that the program, while it meets the needs that we need for our students, at the same time that it encourages candidates to want to be a teacher. I think that I think it's a really good system. And every time I come to a meeting, you know, we all have come from a different perspective, but we are able to really come together and make informed decisions.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
So I have the final question for you. Is there anything else you would like to add that you think would be important for us to know as we consider your application for the COA?
No, I just, I'm eager to continue. I enjoy what I do. Haven't missed a meeting all year long. No, I put forth my effort every meeting I come to, and as an education specialist, I like to give my perspective from that point of view.
Thank you. Do you have any questions for us?
No, I know. I'm good.
Okay. All right. Well, thank you very much. we'll be deliberating after all of the interviews today, and we'll present our recommendations to the full commission on Friday, and then we'll let you know.
Okay, sounds good.
Okay? Thank you so
Thank
much.
you.
Bye-bye.
Uh-huh. Bye-bye.
So we've had a little trouble getting a hold of the next person, so. Yeah, right. You want to take a little break? Great. We'll see if we can get her on. Yeah, I think that's a good idea. Ah. Is it working now? Can you hear us now?
Yes, I can.
Okay, perfect. All right. Thank you for joining us a little bit early, but we gotcha.
Thank you.
Good afternoon, Paula.
Good afternoon.
I'm Commissioner Aida Rodriguez. And before we get started, could you please tell me how you pronounce your last name?
My last name is Suchland.
Suchland. Okay, all right. I wasn't sure if like it was a CH was a K, and didn't if we didn't want to mispronounce it. So thank you. Let me introduce my fellow commissioners. We have to my right,
I'm Commissioner Kevin Kung.
and to my left.
Hi, I'm Commissioner Johanna Hartwig. Nice to meet you.
Nice meeting you.
Thank you. And so we'll be asking you 4 questions, which I believe were emailed to you this morning, correct?
Yes.
Regarding your interest and your knowledge with accreditation. So Commissioner Kuhn will start out with the first question.
Hi. So the first question is, please begin by briefly summarizing your professional experiences that relate to your candidacy for the Committee on Accreditation. We're interested in your teaching experiences, your work with diverse K-12 students or credential candidates, your involvement in education reform efforts, and your specific experiences in an accreditation process.
Yes, I have been a Spanish teacher for 16 years, and I have taught all levels of Spanish from 1 to 5 AP. As a Spanish teacher, I have worked with the Latino community, teaching Spanish classes for native students. And because of that, I was able to advocate and have my native two students in their second year of Spanish take the AP exam. And they usually have to wait at a school, they would have to wait 3 years to do that. I pushed so that they could take it during their second year, so that they could take the AP4 and then the AP5, adding one more AP test to for their college. So I advocated for that, and because of that, 76 students took the AP, native students took the AP test, and out of those 76 students, 72 passed the AP test, and the AP5 class increased to 2 sections. That means that more Latino students are going to be able to take not only the AP4 Spanish, but also the AP5 Spanish. I have also worked with, I was the 504 coordinator at my school, working with 504 students, providing them modification and mentoring so that their teacher would know what type of accommodation they needed in order to succeed in their class. Also, currently, I'm a teacher for UCR Extension, and I teach teachers that want to have a single subject credential in world language teaching. And I have been teaching this class in 2014, and I created the curriculum. And currently, I'm teaching the class, and I teach it 4 times a year online, and I have an average of 20 students, teachers that again wanted to be able to teach world language. So by passing my class, they take a CSET test, and then they're able to teach the world language that they are preparing. Also, I've been on the WASP committee at my school. I was the leader leading the meetings. I was in charge of the school culture. With another teacher, we both led our staff in group to analyze data regarding our school culture and how we were meeting our students' needs and our staff needs in that area. Also, I had the privilege to teach abroad in China, in Vietnam, and it was a great experience because it opened my mind to see that diversity and bring that diversity into my classroom teaching. I teach native students, but I also teach non-native students, regular, what we call regular Spanish students that are learning the language. So for me, it's very important to bring diversity to the class so that all kids feel represented. So my experience in Vietnam and China opened not only doors to see different teaching styles and different different education institutions, but also to see to appreciate different cultures. And also, this is my third year as an induction mentor for an induction program at our district, and it has been such a blessing to be able to be part of a journey of a new teacher. Last year, I mentored 2 Spanish teachers, and this year I'm mentoring a new chemistry teacher out of my area. And even though I'm a Spanish teacher, it has given me the opportunity to see that good teaching is good teaching no matter the subject that we're on. And so that has been my experience.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. As a member of the Committee on Accreditation, what do you think are the most important things to look for in making an accreditation decision for an institution?
I think that it's very important to look at the data, review the data that the committee brings, look at the findings, and after seeing those findings, then together make decisions, informed decisions. As a teacher, data is very important. It allows us to reflect on what we're doing and what we need to do. It's almost also like the WASC process, where the findings need to correlate with the information that we find in a school. There's need to be evidence of the data that the committee is bringing forth. Also, the quality of the programs. It's important to look at those findings and see if we're providing a teacher and admin with quality programs where they're growing as educators.
Here's the third question. What do you see as the biggest challenges for the Commission's accreditation system in the coming few years? And how can you, if you are appointed as a member of the COA, assist the Commission in addressing these challenges?
I think that we are becoming, we're a very diverse world, and we need to be able to support teachers and administrators in programs where they're learning 21st century skills. We need to be able to provide educators the skills that they need to teach our new generations. I think one of the challenges is bringing teacher shortage. I read articles that there has been a shortage on some of the teachers program. It was mentioned at one of my district meetings. Also, one of the challenges is to be able to equip teachers and administrators with the tools that they need to be able to teach all of our schools' population, as special ed students, ELD students, GATE students, minority students. And also, one of the challenges is to provide provide accreditations to institutions that are going to prepare our teachers well, that are going to give them the tools, again, like I mentioned before, give them the tools to better prepare and serve, especially serve our students and our communities.
Thank you.
So I have the final question for you, and that is there anything else you would like to add that you can think would be important for us to know as we consider your application for the COA?
Yes, like I mentioned in my letter of intent, I am a product of public education. I started as a bilingual aide. Then but before that, I was an ELD student. And now I'm a teacher. And so I'm very grateful for that education that I have received. And I have to be honest, I've never been in a committee, and I've never been in the committee and accreditation. So it's going to be a learning experience for me, but I'm a person, an educator with a growth mindset. For example, at our school, we're implementing, I'm leading program, mindful education program through the Orange County, through our Orange County Department of Education. I started taking classes on mindful education, and I talked to the principal, so I'm bringing that forward for our students because there's a high rate of student anxiety in our school and student depression. So I want you to know that as a product of public education, one of the gifts that it has given me is this drive to learn, to have a growth mindset, and to become a voice for all of our students. And another thing, I am bilingual, and that quality allows me to be able to reach different communities and assist them and serve them with the needs that they need.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Do you have any questions of the committee, Paula?
No.
No? Okay. So we will deliberate when we have our final interview, and then we will make a recommendation to the full commission on Friday. And once, they vote either for or against our recommendation, the candidates will be notified. Okay? So that will probably be next week.
Next week.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Bye.
Okay, and then I think our last candidate is Martinez, Marty, and he's in Sacramento and starts on page 22. It's Sacramento County Office of Ed, so he's not at Unified. And he should be coming up soon. Marty Martinez, can you hear us? There we go. We can see you. Can you hear us?
I can. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes, we can hear you.
Perfect. All right. Wonderful. Thanks for joining us a little early.
Good afternoon.
Hi, everyone.
How are you doing?
I'm good, thanks. How are you guys doing? I know you probably had a long day today.
Mm-hmm. Doing well, thanks.
Yes, yeah. So we are the ad hoc committee that we serve on the commission. We're commissioners. And I'll introduce myself. My name is Aida Rodriguez. And to my right,
I'm Kevin Kung.
And I'm Johanna Hartwig. Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you.
And so the process is we will interview the candidates. And there are 2 slots in your that are currently occupied, and their candidates have reapplied. But we have 4 candidates. We'll make a recommendation after we deliberate to the full commission on Friday morning, and at that point you will be notified of our decision. Maybe not Friday, perhaps next week. Okay. So that's just to give you an overview. And we have 4 questions, which I believe you received this morning. And Commissioner Kung will start us out with the first one.
Great.
Hi. So my first question for you is, can you please begin by briefly summarizing your professional experiences that relate to your candidacy for the Committee on Accreditation? We're interested in your teaching experiences, your work with diverse K-12 students or credential candidates, your involvement in education reform efforts, and your specific experiences in an accreditation process.
Okay, thank you. I've taught in various settings. I was elementary teacher always, 3rd, 5th, and 6th grade. And I was lucky enough to teach in 2 different districts, in Sacramento and Elk Grove, in diverse environments. So I was a gate teacher for at times, and also a Title I teacher. I also led in that same environment. So I was principal for many years, and I know this isn't teaching, but is related to supporting teachers. I was a principal in a very affluent and high-performing school in Elk Grove, and then also in 2 Title I schools in Elk Grove as well. So it also related to teaching. I currently am faculty at the University of Pacific in their doctoral program. So I teach research and also leadership. And what's interesting about their program is that it's action research and social justice focused. So most of the students are doing their research around equity issues. And most of the students are primarily community college or K-12 leaders and teachers. Excuse me, I just had my alarm set so that I wouldn't forget about this interview. That was my alarm going off. And so that's the current teaching I do. But also I work for the Sacramento County Office of Education and within the School of Education. So I do a lot of training with adults in terms of accreditation. So I teach in the preliminary and clear credential programs. I was formerly director for induction for 4 years for the teacher induction side, and now I work in the administrator induction side, which is all involved with teaching. And then I do a lot of coaching right now through our clear administrative program, but also through something we call the Principals Academy, which is really focused on meeting principals who are part of the differentiated assistance process and who have schools that have not met the performance requirements as measured by the dashboard. And so a lot of one-on-one coaching with them, helping them support the many needs that they have to support students in achieving and to meeting their goals. I know you said brief, so I'm sorry. I want to kind of go on to some other things. So in terms of accreditation, like I mentioned, I led the induction program for the Sacramento County Office of Education, which is a large consortium of about 700 teachers and 400 mentors. Through that, I led the accreditation process under the old standards back in 2015, and then I led the program in implementing new program standards and throughout the new accreditation process under the new standards and accreditation framework. Within that, I'm also part of a BIR. I'm a BIR team member, and so have participated in or will participate in more site visits, but also part of the preconditions common standards review that we do at the commission throughout the different cycles. And then also lead that work for the SCOE School of Education for our intern program, for our induction programs, and through our preliminary admin program. The other piece of it is really, I know part of the question asked about working with diverse students and education reform efforts. So a big part of my work right now is leading the bilingual teacher professional development grant, really supporting the Capital Region districts in implementing dual immersion programs and also supporting implementation of the English Learner Roadmap. And so right now I'm working specifically with 7 school districts in Sacramento County on that work. And so I think that's everything for now on that answer.
Thank you. So, as a member of the Committee on Accreditation, what do you think are the most important things to look for in making an accreditation decision for an institution?
So, as a member of the Committee on Accreditation, the most important things would be to really look at the BIR team's findings and recommendation report, and really all the evidence that entails. And so then really, so after reviewing that, the recommendation, then taking the information that the team lead and the consultant and the institutional folks would offer, and then adopting the report from that. So really reviewing the information they use to make their recommendation and the evidence that entails before making that final accreditation decision.
For the third question, what do you see as the biggest challenges for the Commission's accreditation system in the coming few years, and how can you, if you are appointed as a member of the COA, assist the Commission in addressing these challenges?
So that's a great question. I think for me, what comes to mind is education is facing so many changes in terms of just the way students learn and the way information is delivered. Also in the changes in the population in California. So I think some of the, well, let me just back up. So I think first of all, keeping a streamlined system that's not burdensome to schools with all of the other and institutions with all of the other things that they have to do to keep student achievement at the forefront. So I think keeping the process based in practical context, so that's realistic to what should I say, that's based in the reality of what institutions face and what students need. Supporting our education professionals with really understanding those issues that come with the changing population. So issues of equity, and not just the changing population, but those gaps that exist in equity and that inclusion that needs to happen for all students. And so I think ensuring as much as the Commission can, our role in helping institutions and all educators be prepared to meet the needs of all students. And so, when you ask about what we can do to assist as a member or what I could bring to that, I think first of all, it's keeping grounded in the reality of schools and the needs of students. So really understanding the students we serve, keeping fresh in terms of how we stay on top of what the research is and what are those best practices. My work so much right now with the bilingual grant work and really understanding how important it is to understand how biliteracy happens and to help ensure that students don't lose that identity and that they maintain that first language and truly become biliterate. And that's true for all of our English learners. So my work there has helped me understand that, sometimes so often what happens, or at least in my experience, is that at the top level, so like at the county office or maybe at the district office or at the CDE, we understand all the resources out there, we understand best practices, but it doesn't always trickle down to the classroom. So I think really understanding that and helping inform our educator preparation programs on how a new teacher really grasps those foundational pieces that will inform their teaching, or how a new educator can really lead that work and build capacity for their teams and for their school sites, so that we truly are really addressing that. So I think really just continuing to ensure that the accreditation system stays grounded in practicality, in practicality, but also ensures that we have that every program is high quality, so that we're preparing students for preparing educators, I should say, for the students that we have.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay. So the final question, that is there anything else you would like to add that you think would be important for us to know as we consider your application for the COA?
Well, I know that you've read my CV, and so and I know that all of the candidates are very well qualified. So I have a broad range of experiences. I've been lucky enough to really be immersed in the work of accreditation in many ways. So I think working at the county office in the School of Education, I'm exposed to many, to 4 different programs that we have, credentialing programs, but also I've had the opportunity to work in higher education. So with the University of the Pacific as faculty member, but really closely with CSU Sacramento, CSU Folger, and San Diego State through the bilingual grant, and understanding that process from their perspective. And then also just the opportunity through our work with current site leaders, through my work with induction, of really teachers who are doing the work and on the ground, and that are the processes that we put in place through accreditation, through credentialing, how it affects them practically. And so I think having that perspective and that knowledge and that current context would really help my work. And so I'd like you to really consider that breadth of experience that I will bring. And then also just my work with equity. I didn't say this earlier, but in my doctoral program, my focus was really on creating pathways and recruiting Latino teachers and principals. And so that's really informed my work here in Sacramento County. With and I know you guys understand this, of really trying to bring a diverse group of teachers and leaders to our students, because as we know, it's primarily still Caucasian, even though our population has changed and the teaching force hasn't kept up with that. The other thing is just my work and our work at the SCOE School of Education, recruiting a diverse group of teachers. And so having an intern program has really helped us reach out to a much more diverse audience. And it's more reflective, I think, of our students than most traditional teacher preparation programs. It attracts second career folks who are really coming into teaching after they've been a scientist or a mathematician and now want to give back and teach. And so I think, again, just taking into account my broad experience that I would bring to the work. And also just want to say thank you for the opportunity to interview.
Thank you.
Do you have any questions of the ad hoc committee?
Well, I do. I know you've already mentioned that, so the decision will be Friday, and I'll hear sometime next week.
Mm-hmm.
The other thing I was wondering about is so for a new member coming on board, is there some kind of onboarding or orientation that happens so you understand the work and can come on board more quickly?
Yes, there is, and I will have Ms. Hickey respond to that.
Hi there. Hi. Yes, actually, the staff could meet with you ahead of time at your convenience, and we can go through, the kinds of responsibilities that the members of the COA have, and the way that they operate. We usually include our co-chairs in that meeting with the new members, and kind of walk through the different things from the approval of new programs to the accreditation site visits to how you consider revisits for institutions that have had stipulations and how you address those kinds of things. And then some of the wider policy issues that you deal with, because the COA also is a body that works with the commission to help implement some of the policies, or the commission also uses the COA from time to time for some feedback on change of standards and those kinds of things. So there's a kind of a wide variety of responsibilities, and we kind of go over all of that as well as all the the procedures and how the body operates and the expectations. Yes, so we do that. Yeah.
Thank you. That sounds pretty comprehensive. Cheryl, that brought up another question I was thinking last night about is, so I know that sometimes there's reporting and there's certain actions of the commission that may be specific to, say, a particular type of institution. Maybe it's an induction program, or so. When that happens, then is that work done primarily by the group that has that experience? So because I'm not primarily an IHE, but more of a the K-12 kind of part, is it kind of parceled out that way?
So depending on what you're talking about, we make sure that we have the expertise at the site visits that we need for the specific credential areas. So for instance, not all of us have expertise in school nurse, so we very, very much need that expertise. Speech language pathology, any number. So we make sure that we have somebody who has that credential and that experience either in the preparation world or in the practitioner world, as well as though I think the teams benefit by having a wide variety of perspectives. So we do try to make sure that there's some balance to the extent we can and keep the team small enough so that you hear from a K-12 person as well as a higher ed person, as well as somebody who, like at a small religious-based institution, we make sure we have somebody who has that sort of background. So same thing with a big, large CSU, so that as the teams are talking about issues that may come up, that there's somebody who understands the large public institutions. So there's a lot of balancing that we do to try to make sure that perspectives are heard and that everybody's kind of held to the same standards. But there are times when we specifically need, just the induction people to look at the induction credential information provided by the institution, particularly program review. So I don't know if that answers your question or not, but
I think maybe I didn't articulate it very well. So I really meant, because you're talking about like the VAR teams and everybody that goes out. I was thinking more of the commission itself. So if there's reporting and things from the members, I guess my assumption is that if I'm a K-12 person and it's a K-12 issue or maybe an induction program thing, then that's we would the commission or the chairs of the committee would call on specific people to, I guess I'm just, because it talked about reporting that happens. I was reading the accreditation framework. So I just wondered how does the commission, I guess, accomplish that work? I mean, the COA, I should say, accomplish that work.
So are you talking about, I just want to get clarity on the question. Are you talking about?
I'm not a very good communicator here now.
That's okay. Well, so the COA kind of operates, they're delegated certain responsibilities in Ed Code, but from time to time the commission seeks other information or other feedback from COA because there is a set group of experts that they can call on to get some feedback on. That particularly happens when we have new standards or about to adopt new standards, those kinds of things, and then they ask for them as a body in general. So. Yeah, I don't know if I've answered your question.
That was my question. So you got to, thank you. I'm sorry I articulated so poorly.
Problem.
Thanks.
And everybody does have equal input. And so at the site level, you see things about teacher preparation and induction or higher ed that is very different, right? So you bring in your perspective and everyone comments equally based on what they've read.
I see. That was really helpful. Thank you.
Do you have any other questions?
I think that's it for now. Just again, thanks very much for your time and for letting me interview.
Thank you. And you'll be hearing from us soon.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
Thanks. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
you.
We have 4 candidates for the K through 12 position. Jomeline Balatayo, Suzanne Borghese, is that how? Paula Suxland and Martin Martinez. The last 2 are, or the first 2 actually, are currently serving. And so, who would like to start with thoughts?
Yes. We're recording, right? So, I thought that all four candidates could serve very well. My assessment from the information we've been provided and the interviews is that I believe the strongest candidate was the final candidate, Mr. Martinez. I believe the least strong candidate was the second to the last candidate, Paula Suchland. The reasoning, just very briefly about Paula, is I think she is a little bit earlier in her career with some less experience that is relevant. Clearly extremely dedicated to the teaching profession and is going to have a lot to contribute, but may not have the same level of contribution available at this point for the accreditation process. And also in her answers, she was not talking as directly about the accreditation process itself as some of the other candidates. Why Mr. Martinez was my top candidate is that he has an extremely broad experience, including in accreditation itself, but also, as he pointed out, in the immediate fruits of accreditation in terms of working with induction programs and how well prepared students are, as well as a teaching background at the K-12 level and the higher ed level. So he seemed extremely well prepared. One thing that I also wanted to note was that I like that he has coaching experience, because I feel that that's actually an important skill when thinking about how do we work with the institutions if we're trying to coach them to be better institutions. And so I like that that was part of his skill set. There are other details I could give, but that's the reason why. I am interested for our conversation about Jo Maline and Suzanne, who were my middle two candidates, because I have a similar assessment of them, and so I'd like to work through our discussion the relative advantages that each of them has.
Okay, I guess I'll go next, if that's okay. Actually, my assessment, based on what we saw today and read, that of the materials that they submitted, my top choice is also Martin Martinez, for pretty much the same reasons. He has experience teaching at the elementary level, has worked as administrator, works in IHE, so he has experience in every level, pretty much. And I think he would also add to the diversity of the group, because both in terms of geographic distribution of the states, as well as everything from gender and ethnicity. So I think he would definitely add diversity to the group, which is needed. As for my second candidate, I think we should discuss more, but for who I think is the next choice. But for my top choice, I believe it would be Martin Martinez.
Okay, and for all of the reasons that you mentioned, I had also rated Martin as number one, because I thought that it's evident that he was prepared and that he knows what he's talking about, and he's very, very clear about it. And also, I also rated Paula as 4. I think that she has a lot to offer in terms of what she's doing at the site level right now. And I mean, I think your point about, she needs to do a little more to have the preparation to bring it up to this level. Jo Maline was my number 2, and for a few reasons. One, her education level is, she's incredibly well prepared. Mm-hmm. She's seen a lot of diversity within her classrooms, within her school site, and she's also in the Los Angeles area. So geographically, that was a big plus for me. Mm-hmm. In putting Jo Maline number 2. Mm-hmm.
Okay.
I think I would add to that I was impressed with Jo Maline's letter of interest. It was, she clearly really dedicated some time to really thinking through thinking that through, and her ability to contribute in terms of the research background training she has does seem that could be very useful. Useful for her. I think one of the things I was interested in us talking about Suzanne is her perspective as a education specialist. Seems like that was a valuable and different perspective to be bringing to the accreditation committee. So I'm not, sure that outweighs reasons why Jo Malene might be the right next choice, but I did want to bring that up.
So for me, yeah, my second choice would probably also be Jo Malene. And though it was, Suzanne also would be really good for this, but we have to choose. And so combination of, yes, I feel, as Commissioner Martinez just said, is that she has the research background. She has worked with IHEs, and she works in an urban setting, which I think which is a very important part of this as well.
Did you want to say something else?
Oh, just that I would concur. I think that they're both excellent candidates, but for those reasons, and as I think about it more, I think that Jo Malene would also be my second choice.
And so what we can do is we can have a motion, and the person who makes the motion can move for the number 1, number 2 recommendation, and the third can be an alternate, if you'd like. Yeah. So would you like to make a motion?
Sure. I'd like to move that we appoint Martin Martinez and Jo Malene Balatayo to serve as to serve on the committee of accreditation. Okay, as well as have Suzanne Borges serve as an alternate.
Do I hear a second?
I second that.
All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
I forgot to say, please say aye. Anyone opposed? Okay, motion carries. And now moving on to the IHE, we have 2 candidates, Lisa Kurtman and Mike Hillis. And there is 1 slot available. And you can also, think about this in terms of an appointment and also the alternate. Okay, so would you like to start, Kevin?
Okay, sure. Okay, this is actually a hard one for me. First, I think both candidates would serve the COA very well. Lisa Kurtman, she taught here in California, worked in an alternative program through the LAUSD program. She works at Cal State as the dean of Cal State Fullerton, and also teaches at Cal State Teach. So she's a Californian from the beginning and on. The other candidate, Mike Hillis, he brings in lots of experiences that I think could benefit the COA because he's done accreditation in other states, in Tennessee, in Washington State. And so it's hard because I see he could bring a very good, diverse, new background and bring in new information that especially from other states, but he's also new to the state. So it's a hard choice because, do we bring in new perspectives that could be good, but he's somewhat new to California? Or do we choose someone who's also very experienced and but, it is hard. It's a hard decision.
Do you want, sure. I agree. I think they both would be excellent members of the Committee on Accreditation. They're clearly very broad thinking, very well educated themselves with great experience levels, at the top of their institution. So I think that both of them would be great and would bring different perspectives. I have chosen Mike Hillis as my top choice for some of the reasons that Commissioner Kong alluded to. I think that the immersion in the accreditation process that he has had for almost his entire career, it seems like, the last 20 years or so, could be very valuable for the committee. And I think that the coming from outside of the state is actually a big bonus, to have the perspective of how it is done in other places brought to our Committee on Accreditation as possibly new or different ways of doing things could be very useful. He seems the sort of person to me who would, and he reflected that he has already jumped into learning about this process because of his responsibilities at his institution. So I'm not as concerned about him not knowing the ins and outs of California beyond the last couple of years that he's here, because I got the impression that he would learn those very quickly. There are certainly advantages that Lisa would bring and perspectives that she would bring that he would not bring, but he seems like a pretty unusual candidate in terms of the depth of his accreditation experience. That seems like it could be very useful, and I also do like that he is willing to throw himself into this work, even though he's still fairly new to that community. So to repeat, both I think would be excellent. Certainly, we'll hope that the second will be an alternate, but I think I would select Mike as my top choice. Dr. Hillis and Dr. Kurtman, I should say.
Okay, yeah, no, definitely great comments, and I agree with what you said about both candidates. Dr. Kurtman is my first choice, because I felt that while she was speaking about from accreditation to teacher preparation, that she conveyed this tremendous passion of knowing that the work that is being done here translates to the child that's in the classroom. And I just, I was, very moved and excited to hear her speak, because I feel that she saw all of the connection. Whereas Dr. Hillis, just what he's published is very impressive. And, he comes in with a very, very impressive background, as does she. The accreditation seemed to me a lot more intellectual, like more of at least, not that there's anything wrong with that, but it was, but with her, I felt, as I was listening to her, that there's the whole picture is there. I really liked what he said about, it's almost like, I didn't choose it chose me. And, so I think it's like in his blood, this whole accreditation process. So, and that's why she was my first choice. Again, I felt that that she's so committed, having been in alternate programs herself, knowing those limitations, because she's lived it, right? She knows what she needed to go into a classroom, which, I'm not sure if she was able to get that in her program. And so she has experience, and she's got the theory and the practice that I think are incredibly valuable to the committee.
Okay, I guess this goes back to me. Again, I start with both candidates were very strong and would serve the COA very well. And here, saying praises to both of them, we have to choose, and I'm going to have to go in this case. I'm going to have to choose with Mike Hillis. Um, and because I think it would serve the COA really well to bring in new perspectives, especially from what other places, other states have done to the committee.
Would you like to make a motion?
Sure. I'd like to move that, or make a motion that to appoint Mike Hillis to the Committee on Accreditation and have Lisa Kurtman be our alternate.
Okay. All those in favor?
Second. We need a second.
I second that.
All those in favor say
Aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Aye. Me. Okay. So the motion carries 2-1, and so we will move forward with our recommendation, Dr. Hillis, and Dr. Kirkman is an alternate.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Oh, the recess. Let me make sure I get the script right here. We will now adjourn the ad hoc committee meeting. Having no further business, I adjourn the April meeting of the ad hoc committee.
Where then? Where was it? Oh, what you mean for people to visit her? Huh? Really? Yeah, you can't just. Those are not for. Yeah. Oh, you like